You are considering a move to the Portland, Oregon area. So does Portland deserve the reputation it has received in the national media? Protests that lead to riots that seem to be unending. These have been going on for almost a year. Windows boarded up, chain link fence around the federal courthouse, broken windows. How wide-ranging are these problems? Does Portland truly deserve the reputation that it's receiving on the national media? And we're going to get after it right now. Hey there! My free videos take between 5 and 20 hours each to produce. YouTube judges my videos by subscribes, likes, shares, and watch time. I ask for all my hard work that you use those buttons and allow the video to run to completion. Thank you. Hey, what's up? If you were asked by someone from out of town where you live, would you be embarrassed to say Portland, Oregon? Would they question you about how the violence and the protests and civil unrest has impacted your life? You know, really, just like most situations, a few bad apples can spoil the whole bunch. The downtown Portland core has been the epicenter of protests for the past year, and we can debate the terminology used, protests, riots, but in my opinion, when protests disrupt the free commerce of business for extended periods of time, and we're talking a year, when people in the area do not feel safe to enter their homes or leave their homes, and at times they just don't have any access at all, when these outside influences impact people's personal property rights, whether it's a business or their residence, I take issue with this. Now, if we're talking one or two protests in an area and then move on to another, life can get back to normal. But for many businesses and people, this impact has been going on for a year. In addition, for the businesses in the area, people are afraid to go down into the downtown core and do any shopping. And every one of these businesses is owned by somebody. Somebody is suffering. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment, freedom of speech, but I also am a big believer in property rights. And I believe that we have crossed the line from free speech to violating property rights. And these protests have never gone to the city and asked for a permit to peacefully demonstrate. You know, when I was young, before I had my driver's license, we're probably talking 14, 15 years old, my friends and I used to ride the bus into downtown Portland from Beaverton. It cost us 50 cents or so each way to go into Portland, and we would spend the day having fun. We would go to the library. The Multnomah County Library is the largest library in the state, and back in the 70s, before the prevalence of the internet, people actually used libraries, and you could do tons of research there or read up on interests and hobbies, and this was awesome. There were all kinds of shops that we could walk through, and museums, have some lunch, and then ride the bus back for another 50 cents. And this was considered to be a safe activity, at least for a few teenage boys. But at this time, there are grown adults who don't feel safe in downtown Portland. And this is not without merit. As you drive down the streets, there are blocks of buildings with plywood over the windows, graffiti painted all over the plywood and the stonework. There are no parked cars because the businesses are all closed. There is no pedestrian traffic. It really looks like a war zone rather than a city. The parks have pitched tents in them with homeless people, garbage in big piles and blowing throughout the area. So I've painted a pretty bleak picture of downtown Portland at this time. And it is accurate, and I believe that the downtown core deserves the coverage and reputation that the national media is painting. Although the frequency of these protests have decreased, they still pop up often enough to keep people from repopulating the downtown core. Many businesses have closed their operations in downtown, some banks, and they've moved into the suburbs because they have felt that the area is just not safe for their employees. But all this is really concentrated in a very small area. Unfortunately for the people in this area, it's devastating. Periodically, these protests will spill out onto the freeway, Interstate 5, and stop traffic. Periodically, these protests will pop up in the inner city outside the downtown core in southeast, northeast, and north Portland. And a Chaz or CHOP style takeover occurred in North Portland on Mississippi that lasted for about a week. Wasn't like a huge extended period like it was in Seattle. But this is about the extent to the reach of these problems. Now, homeless camps reach much further away from the city core. You will find homeless encampments along the freeway easements, the landscaped areas, along all three of the interstate freeways in the city of Portland. Interstate 5 going right through the core of Portland, Interstate 84 heading east from Portland, and Interstate 205 on the east side of Portland that runs north and south. And there are piles of garbage, 15, 20 yards of garbage piled up, because they really have nowhere to dispose of it properly. And this garbage is not picked up by the city, county, or state. It blows in the wind and creates just miles of mayhem. You know, this is not the Portland that I grew up in. In the 70s, I remember looking in the classified ads, the city of Portland was looking for a contractor to wash the tunnel surfaces on Highway 26 that leads out of downtown Portland. This is just an example of the care that was taken of our city that has degenerated. Nobody is managing the trash along the freeways, let alone washing the tunnels. There seems to be no plan to address homelessness, and I am not saying this is an easy issue. With COVID, we have seen a big spike in homelessness, but this is a phenomenon that is growing nationwide, and the city seems paralyzed to address any of these issues. I really hate the idea of people coming into town, tourists, people visiting their families and driving through Portland, and I mean, I don't know if this is politically correct, but it's like driving through a ghetto. The Portland skyline and architecture is beautiful. The region is beautiful, but the micro view is horrible. So if we were to look at what percentage in the city of Portland does this problem exist, I would say possibly 5%. This is a thumbnail projection of mine. It's not scientific, but I would say about 5% of Portland, of the Portland city limits, has this stuff going on. Now, Portland has a population of about 665,000. The metro Portland area has a population of about 3 million. So that 5% that affects the Portland area, that percentage becomes much, much less, almost a rounding error, if we were to include all of the Portland metro area. I live 7 miles from the epicenter, just off I-5 in a floating home. There are some homeless camps off the freeway on Hayden Island, which is where there are many floating home communities. But these typically are right along I-5, just as they are in Portland, and just as they are in downtown Portland. But there are no protests or riot here. So I can say from personal experience of living in Portland that the problems I've described are limited to a small geographic area. But when friends and family come to visit, typically they're going to have to take one of our 3 freeways to get to my home, and they're going to experience and see the worst of Portland. You know, this is a beautiful area. We have green trees, we have water, we have pretty clean air. In the summer we have awesome weather, we have views of mountains, just beautiful vistas. And there is a lot of tourists that come to this area, and a great deal of them will experience the worst of Portland. But again, people coming into town are more than likely only going to experience this while driving on the freeways. You know, over the decades, most of the Portland area has revitalized. The residential areas of southeast Portland, northeast Portland, north Portland, those areas have become much more desirable than they used to be 20, 30, 40 years ago. But there are some areas that I believe should be avoided, both from the standpoint of shopping and buying a home. It's difficult to encapsulate into a short video exactly where the safe and best neighborhoods are. But in a nutshell, the east side of Portland has some very desirable neighborhoods. But as a rule, as you move away from these desirable neighborhoods, that you're going to run into some sketchy neighborhoods. And to make it clear, I'm not talking about the neighborhoods based on their race. I am talking from a crime and homeless standpoint. But some of the region's best walkable neighborhoods are in downtown Portland. The Pearl District, the South Waterfront, the Hawthorne District. These are a few that offer just awesome walkable access to shops and restaurants, coffee shops. If you desire a walkable inner city lifestyle, these are the best places to live. The prices in some of these areas, especially in the condo market, are down about 30% in the last year. They were on the decline a little bit anyway before all this started happening, because I believe that the market was overbuilt. But you combine that with the problems we've had in the last year, and like I said, the prices are down about 30%. Long term, I believe that there is a huge upside in equity available in these condos, because at some point life will normalize here. Okay, next, a broad brush stroke. Almost any of the suburban bedroom communities of Portland I would consider safe. Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tualatin, Wilsonville, Sherwood, Tigard, Shoals. These are all on the west side, and I consider all of these to be a safe place to live and all but void of a lot of the problems that we've been talking about earlier. On the east side, Happy Valley, parts of Gresham. Gresham butts up against the city of Portland, and the western edge of Gresham can be not much different than the city of Portland, but as you get further away from the city of Portland and more into the suburbs of Gresham, there are some extremely nice neighborhoods in Gresham. But other communities, Oregon City, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, Clackamas, I consider all these to be safe communities. Across the river in Washington, Vancouver, Camas, Washougal, Ridgefield, Salmon Creek, these are all very desirable bedroom communities. So does the city of Portland deserve the reputation that it's received? In some cases, yes. But in the vast majority of cases, no. Many parts of the city of Portland are still good, and almost all of the suburbs outside the city of Portland are good. Aside from Portland, Multnomah County, which is where Portland resides, so Multnomah County encompasses some communities that are not in the city of Portland, closely mimics Portland's politics and problems. And so many people will choose to not locate in Multnomah County, even though the micro communities there are good. I live in Portland, Multnomah County, but the community I live in is gated. And the floating home lifestyle fits me so perfectly that I would not choose to live anywhere else. And lifestyle is what buying a home is all about. And likewise, if your lifestyle is inner city walkable living, then I can support that lifestyle and I can help you achieve that lifestyle. The bottom line is, allow me to recommend areas based on my 60 years of living here. Which areas might be worth taking a look at? Again, it's always about lifestyle. Lifestyle is everything. City, suburbs, rural, waterfront, walkable. Everyone has their own desires and goals. Portland has it all. The recreational opportunities here are almost endless. Safety in the vast majority of communities in the Portland metro continue to offer a high degree of safety. So if you're considering moving to the Portland area, it's up to you whether you want to lump the problems of a few micro communities into the entire region of 3 million people, because truly the lifestyle here is varied and awesome. And I believe the Portland-Vancouver area deserve consideration for your relocation to a new area. And with that, I'll catch you later.